Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial video on COUNTIFS in Excel. Now COUNTIFS are a statistical function in Excel, so if you're looking for them, if you jump onto the formulas ribbon, and this big group in the middle there is our functions library. This is where you can find all of the functions that are available to you in Excel. And underneath the More Functions button, you'll see that we have a statistical group. And as we scroll down, these are all in alphabetical order, you will find both COUNTIF and COUNTIFS underneath here. Now, these two functions are actually very closely related, and I am going to start out by talking to you and also demonstrating how you do a simple COUNTIF before we move on to talking about COUNTIFS, because I think it's important that you understand COUNTIF before progressing on. Now, if you're wondering what the main difference is between those two functions, it is that COUNTIFS allows you to count the number of cells in a list, but based on multiple ranges and criteria. Whereas if you're utilizing COUNTIF, you can only count in one range using one criteria. Now, I will say that COUNTIFS was introduced much later than COUNTIF, and it's basically made the COUNTIF function obsolete, as you can do just a basic COUNTIF using the COUNTIFS function. However, COUNTIF is still available in Excel as kind of a legacy option, so that people who are still used to using COUNTIF can carry on using it. So don't worry, it is still there. So let's explore COUNTIF first of all. Now, what I have on this spreadsheet is I have just a very simple table of data. I have some countries listed, I have the date those trips were launched, and I have the activity level. So this is really data for some kind of travel company that sells different trips. And I can use the COUNTIF function to count items in my list based on criteria that I specify. So remember, when we're using COUNTIF, we can only select one range of data and we can only use one piece of criteria. So for example, I could use COUNTIF if I wanted to count the number of trips that were launched in 2019. So I'm going to type in equals COUNTIF. I'm going to open my bracket, and you can see my two arguments underneath, and the first one highlighted in bold is range. So I essentially want to count the trips launched in 2019. So I need to select the range that contains what I'm looking for. So in this case, it's going to be B4 to B14. So I'm saying look in this range, comma, and now I get to specify my criteria. So my criteria is going to be 2019. Now, because that's text, I need to put my criteria in quote marks. Now, I can type in just 2019, or I could use a logical operator in here and say count all trips that are equal to 2019. It doesn't really matter in this example. I then close off my bracket, and that is my formula. So I'm saying in the range B4 to B14, find everything that says 2019 and tell me how many times you find it. If I hit enter, it's telling me 3. And if I just do a visual check, I can see that I have 1, 2, 3 trips. So that is accurate. Now that is a COUNTIF. And as I said, you can use one range and one set of criteria. So it is somewhat limiting in that respect. And that is where COUNTIFS comes in. So now let's look at how we would perform a COUNTIFS. So in this first example, you can see again the data I have. I have countries, I have the year that the trip was launched, and I have activity levels for those trips. And it might be that I want to count the number of trips launched in 2019 that have the activity level of relaxed. So I essentially have two pieces of criteria there. I have the year and the activity level. So this time I'm going to use COUNTIFS. And you can see the arguments there are slightly different. So it's asking me criteria range number 1. So the first thing I want to count is the number of trips launched in 2019. So my first range is going to be the dates the trip were launched, comma. It's now saying, okay, what criteria do I need to look for within this range? So again, I'm going to type in 2019 in quote marks because it's text. But now if I press comma, I can carry on going. So I can now enter in my second criteria range. So once it's found all the trips that were launched in 2019 in range B4 to B14, I then want it to look for all trips that have an activity level of relaxed. So I want it to look in the activity level range, C4 to C14, and my criteria in quote marks is the word relaxed. So I've utilized two ranges and two pieces of criteria. And it's worth noting that with COUNTIFS you can actually have up to 127 range and criteria pairings. So let's hit enter and see what our answer is. And you can see it's come back with a result of 2. So if I just do a quick visual check in my table of data just to make sure that that's correct, I'm looking for trips that are both launched in 2019 and have an activity level of relaxed. I can see there is one just here and also one just here. So that count is actually correct. Let's look at another example. This time I want to count all trips in 2018 to Australia with a price of $4,000. So I'm going to jump in, equals, COUNTIFS, open my bracket. My first criteria range is going to be my year, so A34 to A41, comma, the date I'm looking for is 2018, in quote marks, comma. The second piece of criteria I'm looking for is that I'm looking for all trips to Australia. So my trip B34 to B41 is my second criteria range, comma, and within that I'm looking for Australia, and I'm going to add a third criteria range because I want all trips that are equal to the price of $4,000. So I'm going to select my price range, comma, and this time I'm going to use a logical operator and I'm going to say trips that are equal to 4,000. Close my quote marks and close my brackets. So in this example I'm using 3 range and criteria pairings to get my answer. Let's press enter and see what we get. And you can see I get an answer of 2. So again, a quick visual check. I can see there's one just there. And there is another one just there. So that answer is again correct. Let's do one more COUNTIFS example. And this is again just using a different logical operator. So this time I want to count trips in 2017 with a price greater than $1,200. Now instead of typing directly into the cell, I'm actually going to use the functions dialog box because sometimes people do find this a little bit easier. So a quick way of pulling up that functions dialog box is just to click on the FX or the insert function button that you'll find to the left of the formula bar. I'm going to search for my functions, so COUNTIFS. I'm going to say go, there it is. Click on OK. And this just gives me a helpful little box that I can use in order to construct my formula. So, criteria range 1. I want to count the trips in 2017. So my year is my criteria range 1. My criteria is 2017. Criteria range 2. So I'm looking for trips with a price greater than $1,200. So my second criteria range is the price. And my criteria 2 is greater than $1,200. I'm utilizing that operator. Click on OK and it gives me an answer of 1. So a quick visual check. Now I only have 2 trips that are launching in 2017 and I can see that yes, only one of those, the trip to Italy, is over $1,200. So a few different examples there of how to utilize COUNTIFS. Now if you want to make your life even easier, you could add in named ranges with this. Now if you're not sure what a named range is, it refers to a selection of cells, so it could be any selection of cells, that you've assigned a meaningful name to. And this can be super helpful when it comes to navigating, when it comes to other people being able to interpret easily what you're referring to in your spreadsheet, and it's also a more efficient way of constructing formulas. So let's take this example. If I double click to go back into that cell, you can see here my two criteria ranges are cell references. I have A47 to A54 and C47 to C54. Now, if anybody from outside was looking at this spreadsheet, those criteria ranges aren't too meaningful. So what I could do is name them. So I'm going to escape out of there. I'm going to select my year range, and I'm going to go up to my name box, which is just to the left of the formula bar. I'm going to click in it, and I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to say year and hit enter. And I'm also going to name my price range. Select the cells, click in the name box, and give it a name of price. So now, if we jump back into the formula, instead of utilizing cell ranges, I could replace these with the named ranges. Now I could type in, or start to type in year, and Excel will show me any named ranges I have that are called year. And it's this one here with the little table icon. I can double click it to replace it. Now if you can't remember what you've called your named range, which more often than not does happen, another thing you could do is press the F3 key on your keyboard, and that will pull up any ranges that you've named. So I can see here I want to use price. I'm going to select OK, hit enter. My result is still the same, but when I look at my formula, it is a lot easier to understand. So definitely think about naming ranges for use in your formulas as well. Hopefully that's made COUNTIF and COUNTIFs a lot clearer for you, and you've seen how you can utilize named ranges in the COUNTIFs formula. That's it for now.